Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this April 7th episode of Partner First. Today, we're going to be talking about how to have difficult conversations before they become impossible conversations. We've all been there. We've all been in that moment where we know something's coming up. We know there's something we have to talk about with the client. Actually, I have a few I may have to be having right now that I may be putting off. But, this is how to have them building those coping strategies so that we can get to it early before it becomes, oh my gosh, this is horrible, because it's not like things get easier when you wait. So, and that's actually, for those in the know, one of our core values is now it's we don't wait. It's one of my most loathed four-letter words. And to discuss this, we have an awesome guest. But real quick, we're going to go over the housekeeping. This is live streamed, as you know, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, everywhere. It is recorded, so it will be available immediately after. So if you don't catch us live, please go back and watch the rewind. Definitely worth it. As always, this is a live stream. It's a live conversation. We want to hear from you. We want to talk to you. We want to know what's important to you. So without further ado, I want to bring on my esteemed guest, Mrs. Heather Johnson of Gozynta. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Ray. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. You have a lot going on. You have craziness in your personal life. You have an amazing company, you and Brian and all the people there. And besides being one of my favorite people, so I appreciate you taking the time to come on with us today. I really do.
Oh, it's a pleasure. And you're one of my favorite too. So that works out great.
Speaking of favorites, there's Kelvin Tehelar. I'm just gonna go with Tehelar. I'm never gonna be able to pronounce his name perfectly. But he says he's already watching in the chat. Speaking of, do you want to say anything about how you're going to be a little closer to him in a little bit?
Yes. Actually, Brian and I are on our way to Haarlem in the Netherlands. So we will be closer to Kelvin, working on our Dutch, although I would be very, very nervous to say anything to Kelvin, except ik denk dat we leven een beetje, closer. But yeah, I'll get there. I have a
I
long way to
found with
go.
I found with Kelvin, the more I drink with him, the more my English sounds closer to Dutch. So, but I'm very jealous because you guys are making that huge move, and I think that's awesome. So, for those that he says, I can't even.
Dichterbij.
What is
Yeah,
dichterbij?
closer.
Oh, okay, cool. There you go.
Yes.
So, like, everything I talk with Kelvin, every time I talk to him, he says, "Oh yeah, that word has a Dutch origin." It doesn't matter what I'm saying. I could be like Dodge Ram, and he's like, "Yeah, that's actually Dutch origin," and But that's fun
A lot
stuff.
of
So
our
for those,
culture does. Actually, a
yeah,
lot of our culture is based on Dutch culture, which is very cool.
yeah, he reminds me all the time. So for those that don't know, can you give us a little background on yourself and goes into as a whole?
Sure. So I've been in the tech field for about 5 years. Prior to that, actually had an interesting background. I became a single mom with two little ones. I had been a journalist and heart performance major. Not a great combination for single moms starting out again. I started working at a daycare. I started working at a gymnastics studio because my daughter was a competitive gymnast, and I read the E-Myth, and all of a sudden I started thinking, I love helping small and medium businesses. So I started into business consulting, just here and there, and then eventually got a position in senior leadership at a university. Finished my master's degree while I was there, still single mom. And then I met Brian, and Brian was CEO of an MSP. He took me to IT Nation, and I didn't even know what an MSP was essentially at that point. And I loved it. I loved the people I met. I loved talking to small and medium business owners and seeing if they had tried possibly this or that or the other thing. And on the trip, and I talked to everybody. And on the trip home, Brian said, we need to do this together. So let's
Aw.
branch off some of these, and then eventually propose later. But first was let's do a business together, and and so
I like
that's what
that.
we
Knowing
did.
Brian, I love that order of operations. Let's do the business and then propose afterward.
Yeah, yeah. It's like let's seal the deal now. Um, but yeah, so we took Mobius, which when the MSP that Brian was CEO of, ConnectWise had commissioned them to do a bunch of accounting integrations. Now, those integrations really, we know how SaaS products are. They need a lot of care and nurturing. And so we
Oh
thought,
yeah, yeah.
let's branch this off and give it the treatment it needs. So, I'm not a technical person, so I took the user guide and was like, I don't know what's going on here. What is this API members? What is this? And so I kind of rewrote everything with empathy, made our error messages more empathetic, had our developers start working with customers. So instead of saying, well, they can just do this, instead they felt the pain of the MSPs that were working with us and tried to be more empathetic in their approach, even with development. So now we have a texting integration. Mobius is going strong, and we are launching payments this month. We've been working on it for a year, and we are so excited. And the differentiator in our product for Gozynta payments is that, and we'll go through it a little bit closer later, is that you can send out your invoices to be paid to the customer with that most loved managed invoice that everybody likes so much
Oh, it's
attached.
the best. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
the best. And that email comes from the MSP's domain name instead of through something else.
Nice.
Yeah. And
Okay.
then the link that they click goes back to the MSP's domain name. So, trying to teach our customers to be secure and then send them a link that's not from you, it's not
Well, and we
reinforcing
know
good
how much
behavior.
MSPs love branding too, right? So it's
Yes.
keeping it all in there, not sending the QuickBooks link out instead. And
Right.
but yeah, there's a security aspect of it, of like this is from a known domain, right? Same thing you do with Azure. So it shows on single sign-on, it shows your logo when you're signing in.
Yep.
It's all part of that security and awareness, which I love.
Yes.
That's cool. And actually, I warned you, people would not use the chat; they'd be using Discord and Slack to get my attention. Um, so Rich Banky of Banky IT in Central Florida noticed something. It took me years to figure out. It was until Brian said this out loud that I realized what it was. Gozynta is not just a snazzy name. It's goes into you, right? Or goes into the app or whatever. The data goes into,
Yeah.
right? That,
There's a
like,
yeah, there's a story that came from that. Now, when we decided to do the company, we were going to a long trip. It was like a 3-hour trip, and we thought this is a great name to pick, or time to pick a name for this company. And a story that Brian had told me about his grandfather, that he used to help him in the garage fixing things, and his grandfather would say, "Hey, hand me the Gozynta." And Brian would say, what's a Gozynta? He says, it's a thing that goes into there. And, he loved that. He would tell me that story, and his mom would tell me that story. And I thought, what a great name for a family company, is taking a story from when he was young. And obviously, yeah, our stuff goes into where it needs to go into. Ray, I'm not hearing you.
of course, I have to be muted
There
at
you
least
are.
once on every live stream. It happens. But that goes to show Rich's brilliance. He caught it immediately. I didn't notice it till I heard it, like your advertisement on Sobel's podcast or something like that, business tech. So that was pretty cool. And then you yourself, you are a very, very, very busy woman. Um, besides doing the stuff that goes into and your role at NSITSP, you want to talk about that real quick?
Sure, sure. I was chosen to be the vice president of the National Society of IT Service Providers, and also I'm the committee liaison. For anybody that hasn't heard of the National Society of IT Service Providers, we are trying to proactively get involved with changing the voice of legislation and having a voice in legislation. So it's a really wonderful effort. and everybody needs to be a part of it, because it's not something that we can do on our own. It's getting everybody together to pull together to have a voice, because legislation is happening in every single state, and we're not at the table. And this is our way to get
Yes.
at the table. We have to pull together and do this. So I have loved it. I get to go to 6 committee meetings a week. I keep thinking, oh, it seems like an awful lot, but I really enjoy it. The time goes by so great, and I get to meet MSP owners that I haven't before, and work more closely in a different way with others that I've been working with for years. So it's really, really a wonderful thing to do. I had done a lot of committee work at the university I was at, and also did some work at the White House as well for 2 years before
Oh,
coming
wow.
here. So yeah, so it kind of was a natural fit to kind of come to this and help them with their efforts.
That is absolutely awesome, and I'll put the link in the chat for those of you that want to go join. I firmly recommend all MSPs go join, and vendors alike. And I've seen your dedication and efforts firsthand. It's an awesome group of individuals. I agree with you. The legislation, the rules, they're coming. They're coming from all angles. If you don't have a seat at the table, you're going to be told what to do. So you might as well have the conversations. But with that, we're here to talk about difficult conversations. Speaking of difficult conversations, speaking of people telling you what to do, what let's talk about this. What types of conversations are you talking about? Why is it important to plan ahead? Why are we talking about difficult conversations?
Yeah, I think this subject's near and dear to me because I've made a lot of mistakes, and who hasn't? I was a director of HR for 5 years, and the lots of the times that I saw that employment situations ended poorly, or engagements with customers ended poorly, was because of a lack of communication, a lack of understanding what was expected. And so my approach to this has been to be very proactive in making sure that you're speaking to each other in the same language. Nobody likes to have them. I would much rather go to the dentist, although that is a little bit, that is probably about on par, than have a difficult conversation. Nobody likes them. But it is important because, who likes to rehire? Nobody likes that, and nobody likes a lost customer.
That's
So
true.
making sure that you're communicating effectively, and you're being heard, and are listening is really, really important to avoiding them.
Absolutely. I mean, so many times it's not and I definitely want to hear your experiences in the chat as well, but it's easy to ignore or to miss the cost associated with client acquisition, with employee acquisition, with hiring, with onboarding. It's one of the things I realized early on. You'd get people all the time, especially since I ran internship programs and high school and college advisory boards, where people say, "Oh, just give me a chance, try me out." And I felt bad because even just trying somebody out, bringing them on for a few weeks, there was a hefty cost to bring anybody on, whether it was an intern or whether it was, it's not that we didn't do it. I mean, but we had a budget for interns that we brought on for those programs. We had a budget for, other roles we brought on beyond just the employee salary. So being able to squash issues before they get really bad, or being able to quell those things is very important.
And what I found, because I overanalyze these things, part of the job I had before, but now, being a smaller company, when an employee doesn't work out, it's like, well, what could we have done better? And so then I've come up with this kind of plan. First, it's preventing difficult conversations. That's the best. If you don't have to have the difficult conversation at all, and that's by setting clear expectations with measurable outcomes. Sometimes it's like, well, I just want you to answer the customers. Well, you can answer customers, and you can say, well, you just figure it out yourself. Well, they're still answering the customer, but
Yeah,
but if they're,
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, they answered, and they answered very timely. But if you have a way to measure that by surveys of outcomes, then you're saying, I want you to have at least a 4.5-star positive rating from your customers at ticket close. So you're showing them what they have to reach up to. So the next part is having small, difficult conversations routinely. I do these through one-on-ones. I'll probably refer to them as O3s as I go through this, because that's what I usually call them.
So we do one-on-ones, but one-on-one. Okay,
One-on-one,
never mind.
O3s. Yeah. And
I'm sorry, I'm a little slow this morning, but okay.
it's okay, you got there. And that is a way to kind of address things as they happen. And I call that the spinach on your teeth conversation. It's not a angry thing. It's just, hey, I noticed this. You have a little spinach on your tooth. Just scratch it off. And then quarterly reviews with measurable goals, so that you're constantly kind of checking in, making sure that you're on the same track, and that they're not feeling like they're doing amazing and you're feeling like, I don't know if we're going to keep them. So making sure that you're on the same page.
I've said that just real quick. I've said that
Yeah.
often to my managers, right? Like it's tough because, you know, there's a fine line between expressing to an employee or a client, things aren't going well, and because you don't want them to get in a rut, right? You don't want to like push them down further, but setting those expectations are immensely important. I always tell my managers, an employee should never be surprised that they're getting let go. They should never, it shouldn't be, oh, I thought I was doing fantastic and goodbye. Like
Yes.
that's not fair.
Yeah, and sometimes we do that out of kindness. We had a situation with an employee in the past that thought they were doing really well. Supervisor was telling me, well, I said these are the things to work on, but you have so much promise. And he walked away, didn't hear all the things to work on, but saw so much promise. So when it got to the point where it was like, he's not fixing anything, what's happening? I approached him and was like, well, you aren't doing these. He said, oh, my reviews were great. Look at them. I'm like, yeah, but you were supposed to work on things. And he said, it was overwhelmingly great. It's like, that was kind of the nice part that was put in, but was it nice? Because he ended up not working out because he didn't really realize that those were serious things that had to be worked on. It wasn't just, it would be nice if you, it was like, that was
Yeah.
a time to kind of,
And it's
yeah.
hard, right? It's hard. I mean, we'll get into it, but it's hard to express firmly without being overbearing, or you know what I mean? Like there's such a fine line to walk. So yeah, no, I'm very eager to get to those conversations. Like I said, I have a few I need to have, so you can teach me.
Yes. Yeah, I will try. And then handling impossible conversations. Sometimes they're inevitable. We just have to do it. And I'll give some tools on how to do that. And then really, really important, I'm a really strong advocate of mental health and making time for mental health and self-care for yourself. It is never easy to have a difficult conversation, and very much we sandwich that conversation, and then you have a meeting with somebody else, and then a meeting with somebody else. You need to book in some time to literally sit and drool, so that you're able to recover. And then if we have time, I'm not sure we will, but creating a space for your employees to have difficult conversations with you, which is also important.
So setting
So
difficult conversations, or preventing difficult conversations. You're saying I can prevent this. I'll never have to have a difficult conversation again. It's just do this and I'm good.
Oh, I wish, but I think it will limit a lot of them. I think having those clear expectations right from the start um, makes it clear to them what you're looking for. And all of these documents and all of these tools that we'll be using are living documents that you constantly have to update and reassess. So obviously, replacing an employee, as we talked about before, it costs up to 33% of their salary, never mind the time training, never mind all of the things that we discussed before. If you're using recruiting, the recruiting fees. Here at Gozynta, we set really clear expectations when onboarding a new employee. It's what do we expect for your first day, your second day, what you should know by your 90-day milestone. Here are all your tasks and just how to complete them, so that as they're going through this, they're realizing, oh, this is my job. This is what I'm this is what I'm expected to do. And if I don't, that is going to be an issue. They might
Absolutely. Yeah.
even have some additions and suggestions to add to it as they go through that.
Yeah, I love that. We do that with our the actual job. Everything. One of my favorite sayings from Michael Oppenheimer: "Genius sees the answer before the question." It's not about being clairvoyant. It's more about anticipating what's going to come up. And so we started doing that also with our job offers. Our job offer, when we send it to you in electronic sign, it has, just after the job offer, this will be your first day. These are the things you need to do in advance. Here's the onboarding policy. Here's a vacation policy, the time off, blah, blah. So they have all of that well in advance before they even accept the offer. All the questions they ask when they start, right? So,
Right.
they know what to
Yeah.
expect. They even have the form where they can request equipment even before they first
Mm.
sign. So they know what we're providing them with. And it's been wildly awesome the way they receive it. So I love this.
Yeah, and what's wonderful is it looks like a lot of work, and it is a lot of work when you first set it up. But once it's set up for that position, it's pretty much set. You just do some tweaking and updating
Oh
just in
yeah.
case procedures have changed, but pretty much you're good to go. So having those clear expectations is so amazing. I have made mistakes in before where I've said, okay, yeah, you know, just do the finance stuff. But their thoughts on what they were supposed to be doing was different from what I was assuming they were doing. And so we just weren't talking to each other. I'll take an example like George. He's from operations, and he's just done a new position. You think he's going to streamline your service desk, but he believes he's supposed to kind of just keep things the way they are. You start getting frustrated because you hired high thinking that things were going to be running more efficiently. You needed this, and he's confused because he can sense that you're frustrated. You're not seeming to give him the praise for what he thinks is doing a great job, and that starts to spill over on the team members. It starts to get divided, and by the point that you actually address it, it might be too late. So how can we make expectations clear? We have to make sure that we always have really good written references for employees to go back to review as needed. We use Confluence for that. We have procedures that they follow. If they vary from that procedure, if something's updated, if they don't understand it clearly, because sometimes the way one person writes can be translated just into a little bit of a different way that causes confusion, they update it to make it more clear. And I've heard people say, I just hire people and they use their common sense. But
But
I
that's
can't
so
stress this
unfair,
enough.
right? Like, that's go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah, I love that because it's like I've been bitten by that myself. I'm guilty of this. But please continue.
Yeah, there's no common sense. Yeah, if there's a way you want to have things in, nobody else can get into your brain and figure it out for you. You need to get it out of your brain, communicated to them so that you set them up to succeed. So that is something that I always say is, well, I just assumed they were going to do it that way. Well, was it documented? Because how would they have known that? Don't assume that it's just common sense. that will get it there.
And that's the thing. Like, if they were thinking the way you think, they would be the business owner, right? They would be the manager. But they're not. You can't expect them to think the way you think. It's your way of doing things. And that's why I'm such a big proponent of documenting everything. That way I tell employees when I'm training them, or when they're getting trained, or when we're doing our O3s, as I'm going to call them from now on, I don't expect you to have the judgment when you're brand new. You're not. That's what building experience is for. But with these documents, you have our combined companies 25, 30 years, experience, and you can get the same results. We're trying to make it easy for you. So
Right.
I love that.
Right. And they don't feel so confused. I started a job once, and I had no idea what my tasks were. And my supervisor went to Korea for I think 2 months. And I sat there thinking, what am I supposed to be doing here? Like, I I don't know. I ended up reading all of the files they had from 1890 to present, and ended up being an expert. And so that ended up being really good, but that certainly wasn't written in any task list, and was one of the first things I did, was to make sure that everybody knew what their roles were and what was expected of them.
I have one better for you. When I got
Yeah.
hired by the police department, I was 20 years old. The police department, for those that don't know, it's a 6 month to like a year process. So there's like 20 steps you got to go through, tons of background checks, and so going into the station and doing some kind of paperwork, in no way meant anything. It just meant it was a step in the process, right? So they called me to go in one day, and we're filling out more paperwork, and we're taking pictures and all this, and we're going through it, and I'm asking, how long do you expect me to be here, and what's going on, and they're like, no, this is your first day of work. And I'm like, what? I didn't even know I was hired. And there were 10 of us in the room, and none of us knew that we were hired. It was just, the
Wow.
picture was for an employee badge. We were filling out like our W-2s and our W-4s and stuff, and it was just so. And that's a 4,000 person organization, the City of Miami Police Department. So
Wow.
yeah, so don't feel bad if you guys don't have all this stuff like written out, ready to go. It's doable though.
Absolutely. Yes, yes, it is. And it is very doable. And it's not an all one day thing. It's piece by piece. It's maybe you start documenting processes. That's kind of where we started, because we started when we branched off Gozynta, it was 3 people, Brian, myself, and 1 developer. And so we were just doing everything. But I had 8 jobs that goes into.
Oh
And
yeah.
so when we were ready to start hiring, I was like, how am I going to teach everybody how to do this? So then it was starting to write those procedures. Now I can go on vacation. Now I can walk away, and everybody knows what to do without me. I mean, I'm not
And that's awesome, right? How
required.
wonderful is that you can just take time off now? We do the same thing. Like, I remember going on my honeymoon with Michelle, and I took my laptop with me. Thankfully, I didn't need it, but I took the laptop with me because there was that paranoia, right? Like, that never leaves you as a small business owner. I was laughing at CCF. I was CompTIA CCF in Chicago a couple weeks ago, and like, I had my backpack with my laptop, like ready to carry out into conferences. I don't work tickets. I don't do the account management. I just do the glad handing and get on these webinars. But I still have that paranoia from when I was, in the early days, where like I can't go anywhere without my laptop. It's hard to get rid of that.
It is. It is. It really is. And we it's funny, we have a similar story, because our wedding, which we did at our house, and it was big, it was like 100 people, but the closing for Gozynta was 6 days before the wedding. And our first payroll we were running was when we were in Greece, and we had rented a motorcycle and went all around on the motorcycle. But then we were in the mountains in Peloponnese and had no Wi-Fi, which we didn't think about. And so we're like going around trying to find how we were going to pay people. Well, we didn't think all the way that far through that, that they might not be as connected.
Oops. Yeah.
But everybody got paid. But it was a good part of our honeymoon, was
Yeah.
those startup business parts.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's just part of life. We've gone on plenty of vacations. We've changed billing systems, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But we've changed billing systems in the middle of like trips. And I've had my laptop with me at midnight, and Michelle's on her laptop, on my laptop back in the early days. I mean, it's just part of startup life.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yes.
So back to what you were saying real quick on this though, like we do that too, right? These are living documents. These are not, you're expected to be perfect. We do a postmortem after every single hire. Um, and we say, okay, well, what was good? And we ask the employee, part of the, we do a 7-day, I don't do it, Michelle does it. But they do a 7-day follow-up. How do you feel the experience went? What would you like done better? What would you like? What did you like? What didn't you like? And then as a management team, we go and review it, usually at the 2-week mark, and we do a post-mortem of the onboarding and figure out how we could have done better, and revise it. And we've done that with every single employee. So don't feel you have to have this well laid out thing in the day one. It's just an ongoing thing. I have a quick question if we
Yeah,
have some time.
please.
Um, Dallin's asking, if you hire someone to come in and start a new department, how can you handle that since nothing will have been documented? Maybe no one in the company had the expertise to make them.
Mm. Yeah, we actually had that situation. I started our support department, but again, I've said many times I'm not very technical. So, when we brought a customer support specialist to kind of come in and build a team, that wasn't what I had been doing. And so we kind of worked together on the format that of this, these were the goals that I wanted to see. And we talked about, are they realistic? And then, she started making Confluence documents as we worked together. This is how I'm doing it. I'm not saying that I'm doing it the right way. You might find a better way to do it. Because that's the other thing, besides, revising just for understanding's sake, is that somebody may come up with an easier way, a better way to do something that you've always been doing a different way. So that's how we have handled it, is kind of working hand in hand. Obviously, you hire people that you trust for their experience. I certainly don't know everything for sure, and happy to bring somebody in and kind of give them this framework of, this is what we're trying to get to, so it's easy for you to hire and then share that experience and that knowledge with your hires as you build that team.
That was one of the things, and I can't take credit for it. OIT is an 11-year-old company, but that's one of the things I probably instituted maybe 2 or 3 years ago. As we go and we hire new roles or whatever we're going to hire, it seems obvious to have a job description, because you need it for the job posting. But we revise them also, and we cannot have anybody in our org, either somebody coming on new or anybody existing, where we don't have a fleshed out job description, including their roles and their daily roles and responsibilities. And we modify that every year to make sure they're accurate. Because both, as you have to think about the person you're bringing on, you can't just say, okay, well, you're going to do everything and figure it out. They have to have clear expectations, but also as a tool for existing employees, being able to, use that during their semi-annual review. We do it every 6 months to go over, okay, well, how are you meeting these goals of your position? And, what are we doing well? What do we need to work on? So it's very important. And I imagine that's a little different if you hire a leader versus an employee, right? A leader, these are my goals. This is how I've done it, but you're creating the methodology for it, and hiring an employee, this is what you're going to do versus, you
Right.
create it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the things that I always try to make sure is that for the 90 days that there's SMART goals. So they're specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. So, for example, you will understand how you can show us how invoices batch over from ConnectWise Manage when they're closed over to QuickBooks Online, and be able to do that in your first days. So they know exactly what they are supposed to be showing their supervisor at the 30-day mark. And so I always try to do that, because otherwise, as I said before, there are times where your expectations might be here, and they're thinking that they're doing great, but they're around here. So having it so that it is, you're not the bad guy when you say, oh, you think you're doing great? Well, I wanted you to do better. Well, what is better? That's relative. So if you say, no, you know, you're supposed to be at, you know, a 4.5 reviews from your customers and you're at a 2, that's a lot clearer than just saying, I wanted you to do better. Much more clear for
Right.
them to know what they need to accomplish to be successful.
We call that at OIT, we call that specific, not descriptive. Don't say
Mm,
something's broken. Say, when I turn on my computer, there's a blue screen and it has this error message. And not just for tech, just as a general practice of communication, give them the information. I saw, real quick, I saw somebody posted in MSP Geek earlier today. Somebody said hello, and they're like, there's a website called nothello.com or nohello.com. Because basically it's like, because chat is not like that, right? There's no back and forth handshake with web chat, right? It's better off to say, hello, I have this need, do you have the answer to this, instead of leaving the person waiting for you to acknowledge them. And I thought
right.
that was kind of cool. Get the
Yeah.
information out.
Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that before, but true. Yeah. And you were just talking about, job descriptions and having those. You should try to. It is an undertaking. So certainly, I don't expect that everybody has these. So don't feel like you're behind the mark if you don't have them. But it does make your life easier. Get in the kind of mindset of it. The Society for Human Resources, shrm.org, I think, is a great place to go to get sample job descriptions that have the legal parts that you need. Um, great great organization that can give you a lot of help, especially if you don't have an HR department, which I know a lot of small and medium businesses don't. This is a really big help. Not having to do this every time you hire makes hiring so much easier. So again, always keep expectations clear. Here's one of the procedures that we have with exactly the way that I want it to happen. And sometimes it's even the reason why. Sometimes when you give a reason why it needs to happen that way, it's easier for employees to remember. But why this is important is that as we start to have these small course correcting conversations, you can go back and instead of saying you did this wrong, did you follow the procedure? Let's go back to the procedure and look at it. So instead of just, fixing it this one time, it's getting them to get in the habit of going back on their own and finding it out for themselves, because that's where they should be going. So now we have expectations set, the procedures, how you want them, and they'll just sit there. They can just sit there and languish and do nothing. But this is a way to utilize them. So we're going to have nice, easy conversations. I do my O3s once a week. I've heard from some business owners, well, I only have meetings with my employees when they need something. They're happy, they're quiet, especially, gosh, when we were all remote. Um, you know, it's easy to just be like, oh, everybody's fine, no one's bothering me. Great. But quiet doesn't mean they're fine. It could mean that something's wrong. And establishing a place where weekly or bi-weekly you check in, make sure that their priorities are straight, make sure that you are providing them what they need, and making those tiny course corrections is a great way to keep those as comfortable conversations. So one of my tools is the spinach in the tooth conversation. So if you were at lunch with a friend and they had spinach on your tooth, you would just say, hey, you have a little spinach, you got something here. It's minor. It's, someone not following a written procedure, not entering an expense correctly, and just, hey, I noticed this expense wasn't done correctly. You didn't fill this in. Could you go back and look at the procedure and make sure that's set? that hopefully they will fix that. If it becomes something that is repeatable, it would then go to tool 2, is your O3 meetings. I do them weekly. We use Asana, and this is Faith's O3. What's great about it is it kind of just stays there. And so if she's making a few mistakes, I will put it in so I don't forget, because we're all busy, and things that really annoy us one day we'll forget about in 3 or maybe 2. So I put it in there. And then when we have our meeting, I'll say, okay, so you've made the same mistake a few times. Is there something going on? Sometimes when an employee starts having some issues, it could be something in their personal life that they haven't been telling you, that they might be struggling because there's something in the work situation, in their work environment, that's stressing them out. So, take the time, allow them to talk, ask them how you can help them with fixing this issue, because it's not just them to fix, it's how can I help you fix this. Keep these 3-minute meetings to 30 minutes, and always prepare for them. It becomes a little bit pointless when it's just like, oh, I'm here, what are we talking about, okay, bye. Take some time and really think about what's going on here. What do I want to talk to this person about, and never cancel them unless it's you're sick or something. But show your employee that they are essential and that their time is important to you, and that meeting is important to you. Um,
Yeah, that preparation is something that so you have a far higher EQ than I do, right? You're much more mature when it comes to that. I am not the touchy-feely type. My wife is phenomenal at that stuff. I have other people in the org that are really great at that. So while I enjoy the one-on-ones eventually, I'm your typical I will come up with 95 excuses to not go to the party until I actually get there and then I had fun. So I used to dread one-on-ones, and like until Michelle came to me and she was like, here's some icebreaker questions. Here's some stuff to plan in advance. And once I went in with a series of questions for the one-on-ones, that made it much better, right? Because before I would dread it, now it was okay, there's a purpose to these meetings. Because I follow very much the Steve Jobs methodology of if it's not an important meeting, it doesn't need to happen.
right.
So having this agenda of things we're going to cover, and I do take notes with every employee. I keep in my OneNote, just because a little sensitive or whatever. But so I can refer back to them. Also, I'm an avid note taker. But having that stuff, and it also makes it a little easier because when something comes up that is not extremely urgent, I can say, okay, well, I'll earmark that for our next one-on-one, and we'll just talk about it then. It's not something that needs to be addressed right now.
Yes.
And I found employees, because I'm not, there's very, very few people in our org today that directly report to me, besides the lieutenants, but I do one-on-ones with everybody in my org. At the CEO level, I do it every 6 weeks, is what I try
Great.
to do, if scheduling permitting. And I found that they genuinely look forward to those meetings for the most part. Some of them I'm sure is like, it's the boss. But for the most part, a lot of them look forward to it. And they'll tell me in the meeting, oh, I was looking forward to this meeting because, they feel closer to people they don't talk to every single day.
Yes.
And it fosters that relationship. So there's a lot of benefits to these. I can't take credit for it. Michelle's the one, I think, from some SHRM blog or something like that. She had to start doing this just when COVID started. And I'm very grateful for it. It's a fantastic tool.
It really is, and it builds trust. And there have been plenty of times where I think that if we didn't have the O3s, I wouldn't have been able to course correct, to fix situations, because I wouldn't have known about them and they wouldn't have trusted me enough. Especially us being remote, we don't have that face-to-face time as much. We don't have that water cooler conversation as much. So having an opportunity to be like, yeah, what's going on with you? We have that small chat in the beginning to see what's going on, with family and all of that, and connecting. It's been very helpful for us.
And Tim, no, you are not the Tim on that site, Mr. Tim Golden. And Faith says she never makes any mistakes, so obviously her O3s have to be very easy.
Yes, yes, yeah. Faith is very good. She very rarely makes mistakes. That's why I could choose her. She also made the slide deck, and she did willingly put herself in there.
I love that. That's awesome.
So if you have a spinach in the tooth topic that seems recurring, and we're going to put it in the O3, you want to make sure, so we're going to pick on Faith again. If Faith hadn't been following a procedure, and I kept telling her when I saw it, I would put in a topic, we need to discuss following procedures, then I would be very direct. You never want to come into these angry. If you're at all feeling angry, well, we'll go into it. I have ways to deal with that as well later, but I've noticed that you've been having trouble following this procedure. How can I help you with this? And then listen. You may find that there's a software issue, that they're having a difficult time maybe uploading a blog that you thought was supposed to be up there, and they haven't been able to do that. And then when you kind of find that out, you can say, you didn't have to sit there and wait. Maybe you could have gone to the dev team and asked, let's find another solution when this happens, and let me help you be successful. That way we can come up with that solution. We can check in on it, because I always send a follow-up summary, documentation, HR-wise, my HR hat, document everything. So if you have a recurring problem, not that if Faith is in danger of ever being fired, but if you have a problem that is recurring, you want to always have a follow-up summary of the problem that goes with the employee's response, the solution with the SMART goals, so that you're all on the same page. You could send that summary, and the employee could say, I didn't know we were doing that at all. So there could be a communication error still in there. And here, always document everything. Have read receipts for important emails. Have the employee sign documents when needed. And have a folder for every employee that has this information in there. When we start looking at quarterly reviews, next slide, you're going to want that information, because our memories do not remember all of the things that happen. So quarterly reviews, you have measurable goals. We always try long-term goals. You could have a goal for one of your employees of, I think that they could be C-level, and they could be thinking, I would never want to manage anybody ever. And so this is a time to be
That
kind of
was something
talking.
I learned.
Yes.
That was, to me, I want to be the highest paid, highest ranked employee in the room. That has always been, that's me. And so I treated all my early employees like that was their career path. They wanted to be C-level. They wanted to be directors.
Right.
And I had a good number of failures at management. And I realized it was my fault, not theirs, until I started asking them, what are your goals? And then
Yes.
we have employees now. They're like, I never want to manage. I want to be the best at my job. And I'm
Right.
like, okay, I don't get it, but it doesn't mean we can't support it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so, but that's a hard thing to understand. But yeah, it's ask them versus assume. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we made we've made the same mistakes too, because we're twinsies. And definitely it was like everybody must want to be the best. And yeah, I mean, just looking at long-term goals, maybe they're looking to go somewhere else, and you're going to help with the skills they need to get them where they need to go. Why not annual reviews? Well, if you just talk to your employees once per year, you're missing lots of opportunities for professional development. One of the things we do in our quarterly is I assign some books to read to help them to get to their goals. And when you have that annual review, I used to be at a place that did the annual review, and I would whip that thing out the week before. And I'm very type A. I love homework. Give me lots of homework, but I would forget about it.
Me too.
And and then the week before, I'm like, oh, annual review, and I'd go through and I'm like, didn't do that. Okay. I mean, that's not, what's the point to try to achieve all of last year's goals in a week in panic, and it's, why bother with that? So having the quarterly allows for that to be incorporated all the time.
Yeah, we do OKRs, objectives and key results, and we set those quarterly. For those that don't know, I want to be respectful of time. So for those that don't know, I put a link in the chat and go check it out. But it's an awesome methodology for goal setting.
Yeah, and maybe I see we're kind of running low on time too. So how about, does anybody want me to switch? We can actually give this deck out, because this has more
Yep.
on self-care, and I highly suggest everyone look at that. There's some videos. There's even a video of me screaming, which not many people have seen. So, um, but just want to get to payments so you get to see what we're doing there. Um, and we're going to be kind of, as I said before, announcing payments. Our users of Mobius really love us because we're a family-owned business. We're focused on empathy, but also we know they know we appreciate security. In fact, we're the only integration between Manage and QuickBooks Online that has passed into its very rigorous security review. It was intense. It was so intense. But we did it, and we're the only one that has Intuit's seal of approval, and we're taking that care and bringing that to payments. We really wanted to, we've been doing this programming for this for a long time because we want to do it right. But your customers will receive their invoice with a payment link. This comes with Mobius, and they'll get that payment link in their email. It's branded with your logo. It's from your own email domain. Attached is that beautiful PDF of that invoice from ConnectWise Manage, just in the form that everybody loves and keeps asking me about. So we have made sure that that's there. And once your customer clicks the link in their invoice email, they'll be directed to the payment page. Again, your domain name, and they can pay via credit card or ACH. And after that, they get their little confirmed they paid. And once the payment completes, of course, because we make sure your stuff goes into the place it needs to, it syncs completely back to QuickBooks Online, shows paid, goes back to Manage, shows page, and Gozynta payments is being released later this month. You are the first ones that are seeing the payment structure. And if you're interested in being part of our beta program, you can email support@gozynta.com and we will get you on that list.
That is awesome. This I know I've been personally like nagging you and Brian for the last couple of months, especially with recent news with other vendors. We won't call anybody out, but there's been a lot of interest in people asking, what are the payment alternatives? And I'm like, I have some people I really trust. It's coming soon. Like, I haven't been able to say
Yes,
much. So I'm so
yes.
excited for you guys. This is awesome. We'll put it in there. It's support@gozynta.com to get on the beta list. And you have you said it was an April launch?
An April launch, and then within the first year, the customer portal's coming. We know that recurring billing and having, the recurring billing happening, so you're not having to get payments every month. That's going to be coming all within the first year, but it's exciting, and we have so many people. We did a kind of sneak preview, and we had so many people sign up for beta. I've been on calls pretty much constantly, so it's so exciting to build something for that long, not knowing how it's going to be perceived. And then it's like, wow, everybody's excited and everybody loves us and trusts us with this. And we're really happy to deliver it to the community.
Yeah, and that's the awesome thing. It's not like you guys are new at this, right? Like the payments thing is new, but you've been doing the accounting and the sync and all that stuff for a very long time at this point. So this is just, while a new product launch, it's just another step in the evolution, and I absolutely love it. Heather, thank you so much. I'm so excited about the Goes Into Payments launch. Thank you so much for helping us with these hard discussion topics. I guess we're gonna have to have another one of these to wrap up the other three. And you better believe, OIT family, there's going to be more. As Goes Into Payments progresses, we will be covering that as well, because very cool stuff. For the other stuff we didn't get to, feel free to download the full presentation is there. I will put Heather's contact information up as well if you want to reach out, and I pull on her ear almost weekly asking for advice, so definitely a good person to know and connect with. So for upcoming events, Simon or Juan, can you put up the upcoming events for me, please? Did I lose him? Okay, there we go. All right. So upcoming events. We just had Partner First, how to have difficult conversations before they become impossible. Tomorrow, Tony Francisco and I will be back at it with the MSP Dispatch weekly wrap up on April 11th. We'll have MSP Dispatch again every Monday and Friday, covering news topics, community events, and topics of interest in the MSP world. On April 12th, we will have an Everything MSP webinar where we will be talking about vendor accountability, joined by my good friends Dan Tomaszewski, Taylor, or Taylin, I'm sorry, and I think Connor Swalm from Fin Security is going to be joining me. And then on April 14th, the Tech Bar podcast with super cousin Danny will be joined by Jimmy Hatzel of QuickPass. So very excited to see Jimmy. Jimmy has some awesome blogs and video content and stuff. Follow him on LinkedIn. Very cool stuff. With that said, Heather, thank you so much. I know you're an incredibly busy woman, and Tim Golden pointed out in one of our Slacks, said, "Oh, that's why she wasn't on the NSITSP meeting today." So I genuinely appreciate you taking the time to join us today. Anything else you have coming up besides, Gozynta payments, the move across the ocean, and a million other things? Anything else you guys have coming up?
Oh, no, I think that, that list makes me twitch. I'm going to probably do some of my self-care myself, go out and yell some energy out. But yeah, no, that's going to do it for us.
Awesome.
Exciting.
And with that said, OIT family, this has been another Partner First. Hit us up on Discord, hit us up in socials, Slacks, anywhere you want. Just we're always around. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. This has been a broadcast of the MSP Media Network.